That's my only point on this. I'm not saying Brock's the MVP, and I'm not trying to criticize Patrick Mahomes. But in my opinion, we got to stop doing this. When stuff around you gets worse, you get worse. It's storybook stuff. It's like an after-school special in our minds. We want to make a movie out of it. And then Brock elevated the team around him and threw no incompletions for the rest of the year, even though two of his best players were gone. What are you doing? What are you doing? This isn't a movie. This is reality. Mahomes is not as good because he doesn't have anybody to catch the ball anymore, not named Kelsey. Purdy is not going to be as good when Debo or Trent are out, and actually that 3-game stretch is way more complex than that, as it always is. And Bill Belichick is not a pushover just because Tom Brady's gone. It's just that Tom Brady's gone. And by the way, we could keep going. I could do this with 1,000 different athletes and coaches because that's how it works. This whole idea of something's going wrong, you step forward and do it by yourself. I'm sorry. No, it doesn't exist. We want it to, but that doesn't exist. So if you don't think that Brock Purdy's the MVP, super. Strawberries. That's great. That's fine. I think but that to me is a bad reason. If your reason is, well, I watched the 3 games out of the 11 and they seemed to not be as good when a bunch of things were going on, including 2 of his top players around him were out. And Christian McCaffrey kept fumbling in the red zone when they were trying to take the lead in the first quarter, which is their plan. But a bunch of things were happening, but ignore all that. Let's just, Brock, you're not eligible because you didn't just make something happen by yourself.
Well, it's a question of value, and I do like what Emmanuel Acho was saying in terms of the value of Trent Williams, and Brock Purdy is 0-2 this year when he doesn't have Trent Williams, and he lost another game when Trent got hurt. So if you look at the value of Trent Williams versus the value of Brock Purdy, and I said this last year in terms of who I think is the most valuable player on the offense, I put Trent on the list ahead of Brock Purdy, which is why when you heard that comment today, you thought about me because of what I had said long before Acho came on with Steiny and Goo and said basically the same thing about Trent Williams and quote-unquote value. It doesn't mean that Brock Purdy's no good. It means that Brock Purdy, when he hasn't had Debo and Trent, and the team, to your point, was in a spot where they were heading toward the bye, and they should have beaten Cleveland but didn't because the kicker missed a kick. Minnesota was a game where many people will say, well, Brock was coming off the concussion that he suffered, so we're going to go ahead and forgive that game. I don't either, but some people say that. And then Cincinnati was a scheduled loss, in my opinion, so you could make excuses for any of those losses. I still think that Brock Purdy's having the best quarterback year of anyone this year. Well,
I mean, the stats certainly bear that out. I do think it's interesting to think about this. How about this question? And then we're going to go to the phones. 888-957-9570. We'll see you. How differently would you all feel about the season Brock is having and the season the offense is having? Okay? We don't just need to make it about Brock. Maybe even the whole team. How differently would you feel if the field goal went in? That's it. Just the field goal went in.
You'd feel a little bit better.
You'd be playing for the 1 seed on Sunday. Okay? Brock Purdy would be credited with a fourth quarter come from behind win. Right. How differently and the Niners would be 9-2. Trent Williams went out in that game. Debo went out in that game. McCaffrey in and out of that game. Rain, top defense supposedly in football, one of them. Myles Garrett. All of those things were happening. And with everything that went wrong, if the field goal goes in, they won anyway, and they're 9-2 right now. How differently do you feel?
You'd feel a lot better, without a doubt. You'd be playing for the 1 seed. And the talk about Brock Purdy and the MVP would be a lot stronger. In fact, we'd be talking about this game maybe being for the MVP. The winner of this game has an inside track on being the MVP because they'd both be 10-2 if the Niners won. And if Brock Purdy outplays Jalen Hurts, quote unquote, whatever that means, if his team wins and he has good numbers, and he doesn't turn it over, and, the Niners go on the road and beat Jalen in his house, well, all of a sudden now he's got the inside track.
It's just funny, right? Because it's football.
One kick.
Like, it's the only sport where, like, these people we talk about at MVP, they're only allowed on the field for half the game.
And you only play 17 times.
Right. Like, I think of, I'm sure Grandy thinks about this all day long. What's up, champ?
Enough of the champ.
No,
talk.
but look.
I made 4 free throws, okay? Let's get over it.
No, it's way more than that. But anyway, the Heisman race.
Couple layups.
The Heisman race.
Not 5, not 6, not 7.
If Oregon wins that game at Washington this year, is Bo Nix ahead of Jaden Daniels right now in the Heisman conversation?
Bo Nix is already ahead of
the odds. He's the odds-on favorite. It's not even close.
They're really. Oh, yes, it is.
No, the odds are negative for
literally
Bo
going
Nix.
into last week. Daniels was ahead of Nix in the odds.
Yeah, I don't know what book you're citing, but every odds I've seen, Bo Nix is minus 160.
Oregon wins tomorrow. It's locked up.
I agree. I think it's locked.
We'll see. Bottom line, though, is we hold against those quarterbacks losses in their biggest games, and in some of those, they lose 44-41. Well, what the hell is the quarterback supposed to do about that? What's he supposed to do? The game that he lost in Washington was squarely on the defense and his crazy head coach who wouldn't stop going for it at the wrong time. Completely not on Bo Nix. Not even a little bit. But, he lost his biggest game. So there's just all kinds of inequities, in my opinion, with regard to the way we look at this stuff when it comes to football, and especially football, because you only play on one side of the ball, and other people on your offense can totally ruin the good things that you do. You throw a screen pass to McCaffrey and he fumbles at the 5. Well, what the hell is he supposed to do?
Or you throw a pass and the guy doesn't catch it. It goes off his chest right to a defender.
Or you drive the team down the field and your kicker goes wide right.
Or you throw a pass at the end of the half that's a Hail Mary and it gets picked off. And so now when you look at the stats, it's like, he had
your
3
ratio's
picks.
all off. Yeah.
Your ratio goes off. So the stats don't tell the full story, which is why I liked what Acho was saying. And he was talking about how he watches more film than anybody. And so he can, make a better determination than other voters based on the fact that he actually watches the games. And that's good to know and good to hear. But to your point about the Heisman, you look at Jaden Daniels and his game log, they lose to Ole Miss 55-49. So now he's got a 3-loss year.
Sorry, Jaden.
55-49. That's on you, kid.
Why couldn't he elevate his team to 56?
Yeah.
He should have been able to do it.
He threw for 414 and 4. Not good enough, Jaden.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. And according to the odds I looked at, it's Nix is minus 165. Daniels is plus 145.
Okay. So, the Oregon State game did change that number. I promise you, because I was looking at it before that game.
Sure,
By the way, I'm in full agreement with that. It should be Bo Nix. He's been the best player. They might be the best team.
I doubt it.
We're
going to find out.
Were they favored by tomorrow night?
It opened at 9.
Good
I don't
Lord.
know if it's gotten any larger.
We're going against an undefeated team, the first team to ever in the Pac-12 era go with no blemishes through the whole schedule, and you're favored by 2 scores.
Take Oregon. Give up the points.
I see it at 10.
I'm gonna listen to you.
At 10 right here.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's go to Randy in San Lorenzo. We're streaming live on YouTube, everybody. Good numbers on there. So get on over there. Join the party, the chat. The champ is in there chatting with everybody right now. I'm not going to stop. The more it bothers you, the more I'm going to do it. YouTube.com/957.
You change the A to a U and I'm on board.
Watch us live. See Dibs. Have steam come out of his ears. Like and subscribe all the 95.7 The Game content on YouTube. Powered by First NorCal Credit Union. Randy in San Lorenzo here on Willard and Dibs. Hi, Randy. What's up?
Hey, so I just want to say that if the Niners get to the Super Bowl and even win it, that Brock Purdy will be one of the biggest steals in NFL history. And I just want to share with you guys that New England, for one, is suffering their QB woes because they had the opportunity to draft Lamar Jackson. And then nothing against Joe Burrow because he's a good QB, but Cincinnati previously had the opportunity to draft Patrick Mahomes. And Kittle's a great tight end. Now, I don't know if he's better than Travis Kelce, but the Niners actually passed Kelce in the draft as well. And then another thing is
Randy.
Green Bay.
Randy.
Is it possible that you're being a little bit of a hindsight 2020 kind of a front runner here? I mean, do you know who passed on Lamar Jackson, Randy? Everybody.
Yeah.
They were the last pick of the first round. Everybody but Baltimore.
Yeah, because didn't he go in the third round, right?
No, Lamar was in the last pick of the first round.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I mean, and Randy, thanks. I mean, it's fun to think about.
Thanks, Randy.
But there's 2 points there. That happens in every draft where a handful of people, I mean, the famous one for me that's always funny. Remember when Gilbert Arenas
Agent Zero.
Agent Zero was like, I'm going to take it out on every team that passed on
great.
me.
It was every team.
Including the one who ended up picking me.
The Warriors.
He was mad at the Warriors for picking him in the second round as opposed to picking them in the first round.
You should have seen what he did in scrimmages, Mark. You know who the Niners really passed on in the 2017 draft? A guy who is now perhaps their best player. A guy named Christian McCaffrey.
Mm-hmm.
A guy who played down the street from where they play their games. So they passed on McCaffrey. They passed on Jamal Adams, Mahomes, Lattimore, Watson, Hassan Reddick, Jonathan Allen, Evan Ingram, Tre'Davious White. I mean, this draft is chock full of guys the Niners passed on to take Solomon Thomas.
You know who they passed on 2 years ago? Brock Purdy, like 8 times.
Yeah, something like that.
I mean, so come on. Like they passed on George Kittle 4 times.
They passed on TJ Watt in this draft. Come on, guys.
What does he do?
He went number 30, which means everybody passed on him.
Exactly.
Although the Niners took Reuben Foster at 31. Wouldn't they like to have that flip-flop back?
Trade up to do it?
Yeah. Yeah, they sure did with Seattle.
Yeah. I mean, we could do this to every team. You know that.
Every team.
You know that we could do this to every single team. You know what I mean? Like, I also like to look at it from the other. You know what? One of the most underrated things they've ever done in this era in the draft, when they traded up to get Ayuk. Like, Ayuk is not just a good receiver. He might be the most underrated receiver in the game, especially if you dial into the analytics, his route separation, etc. I think Brandon is a no-brainer. You've got to bring him back, guy. I think he's going to be, by the time we're done with at least 2 more games, maybe, who knows, if it goes well, maybe on Sunday, but certainly by the end of week 14, he's going to be a 1,000-yard receiver for the second time in his career. I think his rapport with Brock Purdy seems to be fantastic. I would put the grips on Brandon Ayuk right now. Do not let him even think about walking out that door.
No doubt. And it's not only his route running, but it's what he does in the run game as well.
Yep.
He's a physical blocker, and he has a certain level of selflessness in the receiver position that it's hard to find. And when you're a receiver in this offense, you need to have that because you may not get the ball a lot. And there might be games where you don't get the ball nearly at all because you got Debo running it, Debo in the short game, George Kittle, McCaffrey out of the backfield. You might only get 2 or 3 targets in a game, and you have to be okay with it. And I'm glad you pointed that out, Mark, because I'm looking at the trade right now. They traded the number 31, 117, and 176 to move up 6 spots to number 25 and take Brandon Ayuk. Pretty smart.
Great move.
Great move. And that's because there was a run on receivers. You had Ruggs went at 12. Judy went at 15. CeeDee Lamb at 17. Jalen Reagor at 21. Justin Jefferson at 22. And so the Niners are sitting at 31 thinking, we may not get anybody. So you moved up to 25 and you got Brandon Ayuk.
Well, it's a fascinating sort of a first round, especially at the wide receiver position.
Right.
Because there were so many Jerry Jeudy and CeeDee Lamb rumors, and the 49ers instead go Kinlaw. And with what's happened there, you certainly are open to criticism. However, Ruggs, obviously, that's ended up being a horrific, tragic bust.
He was off the board already, but you're right
and
about Ruggs.
Judy is nowhere near as good as Ayuk. Now, CeeDee Lamb and Justin Jefferson are sitting in there.
Yeah.
And Jefferson, for my money, is the best overall receiver in the game. And CeeDee versus Ayuk is a pretty interesting comparison. But even if you like CeeDee a little bit more, to get Ayuk like 10 to 12 picks later, I mean, I don't think you're want for anything out of that if you're the 49ers.
At all.
So it ends up being a great draft.
And even if you would have gotten Justin Jefferson, who wound up going 22, and you couldn't have gotten him in theory, I like what Ayuk does for your run game because he is such a good physical blocker, and he matches up well with Debo, who's obviously very physical.